Now hold on, before you say anything, let me just say that I like Red Dead Redemption 2. It is a great video game, but I have a very love-hate relationship with it. On one hand, this game is a technical marvel, absolutely beautiful, and has one of the best stories gaming has to offer. But on the other, it's also a game that's so insanely frustrating to play at times that it genuinely makes me want to put my fist through the wall. The way Rockstar's trademark "do what I tell you and the way I tell you or you fail" game design clashes with the open world design creates such a weird, wishy-washy gameplay experience that I've never quite been able to put the problems with into words. But today I'm changing that, because here's the thing. While Red Dead 2 is a great game that is full of incredibly high highs, there's also a ton of annoying lows that hold it back a lot. It's a great game, don't get me wrong, but it is very far from perfect. So sit back, grab some snacks, and let me tell you why Red Dead Redemption 2 is overhyped. Subscribe, please! This game is actually really hard to talk about because it's more like two different games in a trench coat than anything else. And while both halves of this game have their problems, the way they constantly shoot each other in the foot is where the real problem is. But before we can talk about that, we gotta talk about each half separately, starting with the story. And honestly, what's there to say that hasn't been said a million times already? It is one of the best stories in all of gaming, and it is truly impressive how good the character writing is here. Every member of the gang has so much personality and thought put into their characters that even the minor characters leave an impression on you. Arthur Morgan is easily the best protagonist in all of gaming, hands down. This game's story is amazing, and I'd be a fool to say otherwise. But it's not perfect. Case in point, the epilogue, and also Guarma. Guarma just sucks. Enough said. Anyway, on paper, I love the story in the epilogue, but there's just so many pointless, boring missions that it's just a slog to get through. The Sadie missions in particular straight up suck. While the other epilogue missions should have been seriously condensed and less boring to play through, at least that was the point, you know? The game was trying to put you into John's mindset, and I can respect that, but the Sadie missions just take all that, shoot it in the face, and say, alright, it's time for some dumb action. But because they're clearly there just to wake you up out of the coma the game put you in, they end up feeling like a filler arc in an already slow part of the game. But these missions also highlight one of the biggest issues that this whole game has. The mission structure sucks. 90% of the missions in Red Dead go like this. You ride to the mission marker, then you ride to where the mission actually takes place, then do exactly what you're told to the letter, or else rinse and repeat for the whole game. And I'm not saying that it makes the game unplayable or anything like that, because when it works, it can be really exciting. But when it doesn't is when you really feel how bad the mission structure really is. For example, take this mission from the epilogue. First, you ride from John's ranch to Blackwater. Then you ride forever from Blackwater to a house to capture this guy. Then you fast travel to Rhodes to deliver the bounty. But then he gets broken out of jail, and you're forced to go get him again. So you ride all the way to Dewberry Creek, and then you play through the worst gunfight in this whole game. So Sadie tells you to cover her with a sniper, but then you go down to help Sadie, and this shit is the absolute worst, because there's about 1,000,001 ways to fail this mission, and it's so incredibly frustrating. For example, this game will fail you for standing too high on the wall of the river, because for some reason, they just really want you to stand on only the riverbed. You know, the dumbest place to be in this situation. It's just so stupid. And while most of the other missions in this game aren't this testicular about it, this stuff is here throughout the whole game. And right about now you might be thinking what I just described with the mission structure is just every linear game ever. And you'd be right, minus, riding your horse around for 5 hours. But the problem is this game is also trying to be an open world cowboy simulator at the same time. So for example, unlike Uncharted or The Last of Us, where the developers can design the world so you're led along the path they want you to go on, Rockstar has to force you by being the most annoying backseat gamer of all time. No, you're not supposed to park there, you're supposed to park here. Actually, you're not supposed to take those guns. Here, take these instead. So Arthur wouldn't actually do that. Yeah, so you're gonna have to restart the whole mission. And it's so annoying, because while the story being told is amazing, the way they try and get you to experience it feels so condescending. Nicky Jakey said it best when he said that it feels like your older brother busts into the room and starts bossing you around. And that's the major issue. In Uncharted, Naughty Dog is there the whole time leading you through the game. While in Breath of the Wild, the other game Red Dead is trying to be, it's more like your older brother Nintendo left you alone at the park while he went to go do super cool grown-up stuff like shutting down a charity stream. And both of these games are amazing, but in Rockstar's attempt to combine them, they ended up with a game that drops you off at the park but keeps taking away that cool stick you found, and it's disappointing every time. Speaking of Breath of the Wild, let's talk about
It is hot as hell in this funky ass, hot ass room I'm in. Is that the Grim Reaper?
Now here's the thing, most people I've seen that don't like this game have problems with the open world and realistic parts of the game. Probably because when you compare the pace of the open world to the pace of the story, the open world feels like rear-ending an 18-wheeler on the highway. But here's the thing, I actually kind of like the open world better. I love getting lost in this world and finding all the little secrets that it holds. I especially love the weird and mysterious stuff. Like there's a cabin in the woods with this weird double bubble and trouble witch's cauldron, and if you drink out of it, you'll just immediately, and it's really cool. And that's the magic of wandering around this beautiful open world. Not to mention the graphics here are absolutely breathtaking. Whenever I hear people talk about the graphics in this game, they always just say it's realistic. But I think that's selling it short. If it was just realistic, then it'd look like an Unreal Engine tech demo. It's more like realistic in a fancy italicized font. It's stylized just enough to elevate it above flat realism. And the game goes out of its way to constantly drape the world in the most beautiful lighting possible. And it absolutely litters the world with interesting locations like this cabin with, oh god! But it's still very far from perfect. Let's start with the most controversial part of this game, the realism. And honestly, it's kind of a mixed bag. When you're just out on your own exploring the world, it's kind of amazing. The feeling you get when you're just out exploring and find a secret in an abandoned building, or even something that's just really cool like this crash site, is absolutely amazing. And the immersion of setting up a camp and just hiding from a storm in your tent is so good. This is the closest we're getting to an outdoor boys video game, and I mean that in the best possible way. Shout out to my second favorite YouTuber.
It's John Marston, Micah!
But those moments are overshadowed by the amount of horseshit this game pulls, so Rockstar can make you play the game their way. And in the process basically saying, screw realism, that shit's for the birds. For example, let's talk about the cops. Now in Rockstar games before this, the police have basically been omniscient. If you're doing something wrong, they're gonna know, and it's gonna be on site. But they had the chance to do something with Red Dead 2 that they've never done before, and to make a truly realistic police system that you can play around with to get a more entertaining and realistic system than the way they've handled cops for longer than I've been alive at this point. But did they do that? No, they didn't. They just stuck with the same system they've been using for decades, with one change, the witness system. On paper, this should be a huge change, but in-game, it's basically useless. The idea is that if you're committing a crime and someone witnesses, you can go stop them from telling the cops by whatever means necessary. But this whole system is pointless unless the crime you're committing is doming a guy in the middle of nowhere. The cops will always be called, either by a super witness that can just smell you committing a crime through the walls, or my favorite example where they throw the whole witness system in the trash and just spawn cops in the middle of nowhere when you rob a train. It is impossible to commit the perfect crime, because the game will just shut you down and slap a bounty on your head, and it's infuriating, because the game forces you to commit to all this hyper-realism with having to search every cabinet and cook each individual steak over the campfire. But whenever you try and take advantage of realism, Rockstar goes, actually f*** realism, here's infinitely spawning cops and also get fucked off your horse, loser. And the inconsistency makes the realism so shallow. Like, oh, I can't harvest all these animal parts, yet I have enough room in my bag to carry a lantern, a lasso, enough ammo to take down the whole US military, and more bling than a jewelry store. But the hindquarter of this bison is too far. Sure. See, here's the thing. If you want to commit to realism, you have to commit. Because if you make realism such a big deal, from slicing the split bullets one bullet at a time to every NPC having their own dedicated schedules, but you throw all that out the window when it comes to the important stuff that actually changes how you play the game, it makes it feel like the game is just wasting your time, which it kinda is. But if you ignore the wanted system, you know, the most important part of a game about being an outlaw, what else is there to do in the open world? Well, besides just exploring this beautiful map, there are also random encounters, which are just They're cool at first, but after a while they get really repetitive. And there are also side missions, and they kind of vary in quality. My favorite one is the quest line where you help this guy bring a robot to life. It's just so cool. But again, these aren't perfect, mostly because the mission structure is the same as the main missions, which means the game slips right back into backseat camera mode every time you do a named mission. Except it's worse here, because if you don't do some of these missions in the exact way Rockstar wants, they're just over, like the quest line is closed, and it can happen for the stupidest reasons. For example, there's one quest near the end of the game where you teach a widow how to hunt. But during the mission, I got attacked by wolves. So naturally, I started blasting. But after I was done, the lady was mad at me, and I couldn't finish the quest. It was just over. But when I replayed the mission a couple of years later, I found out that you are supposed to shoot the wolves, but only after the game prompts you to. If you do it before, then sucks to suck, you failed, and she will just not talk to you after that, and it's so dumb. But the biggest problem with the side content in this game as a whole is that there is no reason to do it other than curiosity, because the reward for doing most of the side stuff in this game is money. But when you already have the Wild West version of $1 million in your pocket, it makes it feel pointless. This is a problem for the story too, but it's really hard to get immersed into being a member of a broke down on their luck gang of outlaws when I have enough money to take us all to Tahiti and back 3 times over from story missions alone. And I know you could say that even if we had the money, Dutch wouldn't have let the gang leave. And yeah, that's true, but wouldn't it have made the story that much better if every time Dutch was saying, "We need money," you as the player said, "Yeah, we do need money. I just used my last $20 balling out on my repeater," instead of thinking about the fact that you have enough money to just buy the whole island of Tahiti by yourself. But this is just a side effect of the real problem, and that's the fact that the stuff you do in the open world is completely unrelated to the stuff you do in the story. But what if I told you there's an easy way they could have flipped this around and brought the open world and story closer together? That's already in the game, but as it is now is completely pointless. The camp system. The camp system as it is right now is useless. It has no sway on anything aside from how often Miss Grimshaw bugs you about it. But there's an easy way to fix that. What if we had a donation goal for each chapter, and if you reach it before the chapter ends, Dutch gives you a pistol or something? If you did that while fixing the broken economy, it would bring the story and open world closer together and actually give you a reason to do any of the million side activities like hunting and fishing and treasure maps and gambling and robberies, because as it stands, there is no real reason to do any of these things. Speaking of which, let's talk about...
I am so thankful for you, Arthur.
Shut up, cunt. Whoa, Arthur.
The honor system in Red Dead Redemption 2 is really strange. On one hand, they clearly put a lot of effort into making it feel important, with how characters' attitudes about you will change based on your honor, and how it pops up on your screen anytime you do anything. But at the same time, it feels like Rockstar only ever wants you to play the game one way. Whether it was on purpose or not, Red Dead 2 actively discourages you from playing with low honor at every turn. Let's break it down real quick. The biggest reason for being bad and losing honor is money. Now, if money was hard to come by and you actually had stuff to spend it on, this would be enough. But it ain't. Money in this game is just thrown at you like it's nothing in the story. On the other hand, you get basically nothing from robbing stores or trains. Add in the stupid wanted system and the bounty system that I'll get to in a minute, and the hit to your honor. Doing anything that loses you honor is a waste of time that also leads you to the bad ending. It makes me wonder why they even bothered in the first place. It reminds me a lot of BioShock. You see, in that game, they have an honor system that's kind of like Red Dead's, because the game doesn't make the bad choice good enough to make it a choice that anyone would actually make. How it works is that you're given the choice between game ending a child for power or saving her and getting the same amount of power anyway. You see the problem here? No one in their right mind is going to game end a child and doom themselves to the bad ending for a negligible power boost. It's just stupid. And it's the same problem in Red Dead 2, because committing crimes is simply not worth it. And that's a problem in the game about being an outlaw. The game does everything in its power to make you not want to break the law. Case in point,
I got some jelly beans.
the bounty system in this game could have been so cool, but as it stands, it's just annoying. So how it works is, if you commit a crime and get a bounty, bounty hunters will hunt you down. I did not need to explain that. The problem I have with the system is that it's lame. The only thing that changes with these encounters is sometimes the group will be a little bigger or a little smaller. It's not an interesting system where you can bribe them to leave you alone or trick them into arresting the wrong guy. I mean shit, they have this whole system where you can lock on and talk to every NPC in the game, but they didn't use it for anything cool aside from greet, antagonize.
I like you, mister. You have a kind face. The kind I like to punch.
As it stands now, they just pull up and start blasting, and it just feels like such wasted potential. Imagine how cool it would have been if there was different kinds of bounty hunters going after you, and you can interact with them in different ways. For example, imagine you're chilling in the saloon gambling away your fat stacks of cash, and then a bounty hunter challenges you to a duel. Or you're riding around on your horse and all of a sudden you get sniped at by a bounty hunter holed up on a hill. That would have made it so much better than how it is now, which basically boils down to annoying you enough to go pay off your bounty and start following the rules. You know? in the game about being an outlaw. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You went and you hunted a legendary animal. Great. So you ride for like an hour to get to one of the only 3 trapper locations throughout this entire massive map. And once you finally get there, you walk up to the trapper, start looking through the menu, and oop, all of a sudden you're booted from the menu and the trapper's mad at you. So you check the mini map and uh-oh, bounty hunters. So you go deal with them. And when you're done, you go back to the trapper and he's just gone. And the game tells you to come back later due to your recent activities.
Oh, we were right there, man!
That's usually how it goes when you encounter bounty hunters in this game. Now, don't get me wrong, it can lead to very cool moments when it works, but in my experience, that's the exception and not the rule, and it almost always ends up being more annoying than anything, and that goes for so much of this game. Let's talk about the realism real quick. I have mixed feelings about it. On one hand, it can be incredibly immersive and beautiful, but on the other hand, it just doesn't commit enough in the ways that matter. It's cool that you can see the food realistically disappear off an NPC's plate, or watch the spikes being hammered into the railroad, but all that doesn't mean shit when you're still just spawning cops wherever you want, or making NPCs witness a crime through a wall, or ending a mission because I didn't do exactly what you wanted in the exact way you wanted. Because all those things break my immersion about 1,000 times more than an NPC's steak not disappearing dynamically enough. And while this game is beautiful, I think because of that, most people give the game a lot more credit than it deserves. All I'm saying is that people would not be willing to forgive a lot of these problems as easily if the game was not absolute eye candy. And that's the thing with this game. Red Dead Redemption 2 nails every aspect of presentation perfectly, especially the music. Oh my god, it's so good. But it neglects the most important part of a video game, the gameplay. And that comes down to the game's hesitance to commit. They won't commit to being Uncharted or Breath of the Wild. They won't commit to being hyper-realistic or teleporting police in front of your face. And they won't commit to being a game about a dangerous cowboy gunslinger or Luke from the Outdoor Boys. Now don't get me wrong, this is still a really good game, but it isn't the best game ever made, and I'm tired of pretending it is. But anyways, have a nice day, and thank you for watching. Join the Discord if you want to stay in the next video, and maybe leave a like. Okay, bye.
Better than Paris?
Oh yeah.
Where? Tahiti?